It is December 31st, 11:58 p.m., and you are standing in the middle of a crowded Times Square in New York City. The air is freezing, but the heat from a million bodies and the glow of the giant screens keeps you warm. The famous crystal ball begins its descent, and the crowd starts to chant the final countdown in unison. 10, 9, 8. You pull out your phone to record the moment the new year begins. 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. The confetti cannons fire, but then something impossible happens. Instead of the sky exploding with fireworks, the giant digital billboards flickering around you suddenly go black. The streetlights die. The music cuts out. The hum of the city, a sound that never stops, is replaced by a terrifying silence. You look up at the skyscrapers surrounding the square, expecting a light show, but they are dark monoliths against the night sky. This is not part of the show. This is the 0-hour scenario, a synchronized collapse of the global power grid at exactly midnight. In this simulation, we explore a logic bomb cyber attack buried in the grid's software, programmed to activate when the year rolls over. To understand the danger, you have to realize that New Year's Eve is the worst possible time for a blackout. It is the dead of winter, the grid is under maximum load from heaters and parties, and the entire population is intoxicated and distracted. Let's enter this collapse through the eyes of Daniel, a grid control operator at the Con Edison Center in upstate New York. He is staring at a wall of screens that are flashing red warnings. Frequency deviation critical. System separation imminent. The malware has desynchronized the 60 Hz frequency of the grid, causing the massive turbines in power plants to tear themselves apart. Daniel tries to initiate a load-shedding protocol to save the core, but the software locks him out. Back in Times Square, the confusion turns into panic as the temperature begins to drop rapidly without the heat island effect of the buildings. People are dressed in party clothes, thin dresses and suits, completely unprepared for a night of 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The subways, which run on electricity, have stopped in the tunnels, trapping thousands of revelers underground in the dark. Cell towers, overwhelmed by millions of Happy New Year texts and now running on backup batteries, crash within 15 minutes. You try to call your family to say you are safe, but your phone shows no service. You are alone in a crowd of 1 million people. The police, who were there for crowd control, are now blind. Their radios are jammed, and the streetlights are dead. By 2 a.m., the great exodus begins as people try to leave the city centers to get home to their warm beds. But the electric trains aren't running, the traffic lights are out, and the gridlock creates a parking lot of frozen metal. You manage to walk 5 miles back to your apartment, shivering violently, your breath forming clouds in the dark stairwell. You enter your home and flip the light switch out of habit. Nothing. You check the thermostat. It is already dropping. By day 1, the hangover wears off, and the reality of the winter freeze sets in for the entire northern hemisphere. Most modern heating systems, even gas furnaces, require electricity to run the fans and ignition systems. Without power, your gas furnace is a useless metal box. You have fuel, but you cannot burn it to heat your home. The temperature inside your apartment drops to 40 degrees. You put on every piece of clothing you own. Daniel is still at the control center, wrapped in a blanket, reading reports from the field via emergency shortwave radio. The physical damage to the transformers is catastrophic. The logic bomb caused them to overload and melt their copper cores. This isn't a fix that takes hours, it takes months. We are looking at a winter without heat. The grocery stores, closed for the holiday, remain closed. The electronic locks on the doors won't open. By day 3, the pipe burst crisis begins, destroying the internal infrastructure of every building in the city. Water expands when it freezes. As the temperature inside skyscrapers drops below freezing, the plumbing explodes. You hear the sound of cracking pipes in your walls. Water floods the lower floors, turning the lobby into a skating rink. This destroys the fresh water supply. You turn on your tap, but instead of water you get a chunk of ice. You are now dehydrated, freezing, and trapping in a city that has become a concrete refrigerator. People begin to burn whatever they can find, furniture, books, flooring, to stay warm, creating toxic smoke in unventilated rooms. Fire alarms don't work because the batteries are dead or the sensors are frozen. Fires start in high-rise apartments and spread uncontrollably. The fire department cannot pump water because the hydrants are frozen solid. By day 7, the food crisis hits hard because everyone ate their holiday food and the stores haven't restocked. The food in your refrigerator spoiled days ago, and the food in your freezer is now refreezing in the ambient cold. You look out your window and see the glow of fires in Central Park. People are cutting down the trees for firewood. The holiday spirit has evaporated, replaced by a primal need for calories and warmth. Looting begins, but people aren't stealing TVs. They are stealing Canada Goose jackets, blankets, and propane tanks. A propane tank from a barbecue grill becomes worth more than a gold bar. It is portable heat. Daniel receives a report that the black start generators, the small engines needed to restart the big power plants, have failed. The malware corrupted their startup code too. The grid is dead on the iron, completely inert. Hospitals are the scenes of the greatest tragedy. Backup generators ran out of diesel after 48 hours. Incubators for premature babies go cold. Ventilators stop. The death toll in the ICU is 100%. By day 14, the vertical migration is complete. No one lives above the 5th floor anymore. You cannot walk up 40 flights of stairs carrying water buckets, so the penthouses are abandoned. The streets are filled with trash and frozen sewage because the sanitation system relies on electric pumps to move waste. Disease begins to spread, not from heat, but from the lack of hygiene and the close quarters of people huddling for warmth. You join a warmth commune in a neighbor's apartment. 10 people sleeping in one room to share body heat. You realize that privacy is a luxury of the energy age. Survival requires the herd. By month 1, the psychological toll of the eternal night breaks the spirit of the population. The sun sets at 4:30 p.m. in January. That means 15 hours of darkness every single day. Without streetlights or internet, the darkness feels heavy, predatory, and endless. Rumors spread that the government has collapsed, that this is a nuclear winter, that the sun will never rise again. The wealthy flee to the south, creating a massive refugee crisis in Florida and Texas. But the roads are treacherous with ice that no one is clearing, and gas stations can't pump fuel without electricity. You see abandoned luxury cars on the highway, frozen in snowdrifts, their owners walking south with backpacks. The snowbirds become refugees, rejected by the southern states that are overwhelmed by the influx. Daniel finally manages to isolate a clean sector of the grid and manually restart a hydroelectric dam in Niagara. But he has to make a choice. Which line to energize? The hospital, the military base, or the water treatment plant? He chooses the water plant, knowing that thirst kills faster than cold. But the surge of power into the frozen, damaged wires causes arcs and explosions, setting neighborhoods on fire. By month 2, the thaw begins, but this brings a new horror known as the Great Melt. The millions of gallons of frozen water in the burst pipes of skyscrapers begin to melt at once. Buildings suffer massive water damage, collapsing ceilings and rotting support beams. The mold that grows in the damp, warming apartments creates a black mold epidemic that attacks the lungs. The bodies of those who froze to death, preserved by the cold, now begin to decompose. The city smells of death and wet rot. It is the smell of a civilization that failed to keep the fire burning. The New Year's resolution takes on a dark, ironic meaning. We resolve to lose weight, to save money, to travel. Nature resolved to humble us. We realize that we are tropical animals, living in a hostile Arctic environment, kept alive only by a wire. When the wire snaps, we are just naked apes shivering in the snow, waiting for the sun. By year 1, the grid is partially restored, but the trust in the smart grid is gone forever. People install wood stoves in their modern apartments, drilling holes through the walls for chimneys. Every home now has a prepper pantry and a supply of thermal blankets. We no longer celebrate New Year's Eve with a countdown to the future. We celebrate it with relief that we survived the past. The ball drop in Times Square is cancelled permanently. No one wants to gather in the dark again. The silence of that night taught us that the noise of the city was actually the sound of safety. Daniel retires from the power company. He moves to a cabin in the woods with a solar array and a large woodpile. He knows that the software can be patched, but the fragility of the system cannot be fixed. So, as you prepare to celebrate this new year, look at the lights on your tree. Look at the heater vent in the corner. Listen to the hum of the refrigerator. These are not rites, they are miracles. They are temporary gifts from a machine we barely understand. If the machine stops at midnight, do you have a heavy coat? Do you have matches? Do you have a way to keep your family warm when the glass towers turn into ice tombs? Or will you be standing in the crowd, holding a useless phone, waiting for a firework that never comes? Tell me in the comments. If the power went out on New Year's Eve and didn't come back for a month, would you freeze or flee? I'll see you in the comments, staying warm by the fire.